2 minutes to speak, and it'll be 5 seconds in between speakers. I'll call you up in rows of 5. Again, please, courtesy for the person that's coming up and speaking, whether it's in opposition of or in favor of, courtesy for staff, courtesy for council, please direct all comments to the council as a whole. Before we do that, so we do have some elected officials that wanted to go on the record, and we want to make sure that we give them the opportunity first. There were two that asked to, that I guess the council meeting said that they were going to ask to speak on the record. So we have two, I believe, Jeff Comachero from the city of Temecula, and Berwin Hanna, the mayor pro tem from the city of Narco. So last,
Hi, my name is Jeff Comachero.
for that,
I've been a
please.
regular city councilman since 1997. I'd like to be there with you in person tonight. Unfortunately, we have our city council meeting on Tuesday nights, so I just this evening. Did want to address a little bit with you that the issue of fire services and whether it's advantageous to have your own city fire department or contract with CAL FIRE through Canada Riverside. We've never had our own fire department. We've never seen a need for one. So we've contracted since our beginning, the city of Temecula incorporated in 1989. We've always found that to be 100% effective. We've found the response times to be extraordinarily strong. In fact, the burden in our city generally is responses need to happen within 10 minutes. We have response times currently under CAL FIRE under 5 minutes, and we know that that saves lives. It's a huge issue for us. We've always put public safety at the forefront of everything that we do. The issue really for us when we first incorporated was cost more than anything else. That was the only experience we needed to deal with. We find that costs are much less than could be from our own fire department, or to operate on a yearly basis on our fire department as well. So the combination of response times that are stronger and costs which are lower made a very advantageous situation for us to choose CAL FIRE. The other issue that's become very important to us over the years, and really should be to any city, is liability. When you contract with CAL FIRE, you're absolved of any liability. And so if the worst should happen, and you always hope it doesn't, if a fire engine should be responding to a fire and unfortunately get into an accident where people get hurt or God forbid killed, the responsibility financially for that is with CAL FIRE, not with your city. And that can make a huge difference in cities today. We're all struggling to make sure that we're balancing our heads. So forgive me, I don't mean to tell anybody, the city of Hemet or anybody else, what they should do with their fire services. I'm only trying to relate to our experience that's been in Temecula. And it's been very strong.
Past 2 minutes.
The next one I think is the city of Norco.
I'm not concerned about what they have to say. Why don't you listen to your citizens? Propaganda.
Folks, we have elected officials here that want to speak as well.
They're not here to speak.
Sir, I will ask you to please have a seat. Let them speak. We have Mayor Scott Miller. We have Scott Miller next, and we'll be good. I will please ask you to please seat.
In 2011, when our contract with our city fire department ran out, we imposed a contract. We could not afford the contract that was given. So by going out to RFP and getting a response back to CAL FIRE, we were able to save $1.4 million. We still have excellent service. We have both of our stations operating. There's other CAL FIRE stations real near that respond to our city and assist. CAL FIRE offered all of our firefighters a job when they took over. Some of the boys or some of the men stayed with CAL FIRE. Some of them went to other cities with CAL FIRE, but a bunch of them stayed in Norco, which was an advantage because the engineers already knew the town. Our response time is the same, and most of our calls are medical emergencies anyway. We have paramedics. I always have paramedics on the truck. But with CAL FIRE, I'd say that 4 of the 5 council people are really happy. The citizens all seem to be happy. They were worried at first, especially the seniors, but now they've got used to the Cal Fire being there, and they all seem to be very happy, and I'm very happy with it. I'm glad we made the change, otherwise we might have been making a flat out the way the economy is. And the citizens of Norco, when I've talked to several of them since we made the switch, are very happy with the response time.
Let's hear from the
Some of the people, especially the seniors, were worried about the response times because they have been led to leave other Cal Fire. It is very responsible.
Folks, let this enter the record. If you want to have a chance, we will end the public comment section. Please let this be entered to the record.
We just have to go back and look, but the citizens are real happy with the response time.
Our city.
Next, Councilmember Scott Miller from San Jacinto.
Got 2 minutes, Scott.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, folks, I'll keep my comments very limited tonight. I understand it is late and you do deserve the opportunity to speak. I speak to you as my colleagues here in the Valley in regards to this, and I understand totally that every city is being attacked right now in regards to how the state is handling us in regards to our finances and taking things away, besides the fact that we do have a downward economy. So all that said, I want to say that we do have some tough challenges ahead of us, and it is good that you're not kicking the can down the road, and I applaud not only the council here for being here tonight, but the people of Hemet here for undertaking this very important decision that must be made here, because we truly all need to do more with a whole lot less. Just a couple of points in regards to ownership. CAL FIRE is big, but they're also small. And what I mean by that is that even though they provide services all throughout the state, CAL FIRE is San Jacinto's fire department. When you see our trucks, they say San Jacinto on them. Our fire staff know our city, they know our town, our streets, our people. They know who we are, and they're committed. And we haven't lost control. We have control over our fire department. We have a partnership, and they truly are our local fire department. If you talk to the citizens of San Jacinto, and you see our fire teams roll up on a scene, they don't see that as some type of outside entity. That is San Jacinto's fire department. There's so many things that were discussed tonight, everything from CERT training and finances and those types of things. So I'm just going to touch on a couple. I will say this much, that consistently CAL FIRE has come in every year under the budgeted amount that we audit at the end of the year. They have consistently come in under that amount that was projected. Last year was 5%. Actually, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had it up to 7%, where they have come in consistently under the budget. And then just a few more things here in regards to CAL FIRE. The fire chief and the staff that we have are very committed to the city. These people are not transients. They don't leave the city and go to other cities. They're people that, a lot of them actually live in the San Jacinto Valley. So there is ownership there. I also want to say the fact that because we do have a partnership with CAL FIRE, one of the biggest things that I know councils talk about and are interested in is the fact that the release of liability is huge. You won't have the contract negotiations going on. You won't have the risk of lawsuits. You won't have the long-term commitments to pensions. And those all wrap up together into one thing, that it makes sense for San Jacinto to have CAL FIRE as its fire department. We are very happy that they are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Miller. Okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call this. We have Bob Jungluth, Gary Cook, Seth Wenger, and Deanna Corlin. Bob, I've got 2 here for you, so you'll have 4 minutes.
All right. Good evening, folks. Really, my wife and I retired here in Hemet in 1994, and it was a beautiful community. We loved it here, and it was so nice that even people from Canada came down to spend their winters down here. Our city has really fallen on hard times, and I'm really discouraged and disappointed to see the streets and the way that our very much against losing our police department and our fire department. When I look up there, I really appreciate people that come and serve for our city, on our city council. But I don't see a mover or a shaker up there, or a person that was a strong person that we had when we had Lord Van Arndale and Robin Lowe as our city council people. As a senior citizen, one of the most important things to us is our homeowners association. When Robin Lowe and Lord Van Arndale sat on that up there, they went to Sacramento. And when you look at the law, the California law that governs senior homeowners associations, there's 2 laws, one for the state of California and one for Riverside County. That's the kind of moxie that Robin Lowe and Lori Van Arndale had. They could get things done for us. I'm really discouraged with your thoughts of taking our police department and our fire department away from our public service. Your supposedly city manager, I've never seen this guy before. You drug him in here and got rid of our city manager. Again, I'm sorry. I'm really discouraged with what I've seen tonight. And you've drugged this thing out and drugged this thing out until half of our people have gone.
Intentionally.
If you go forward with this, I'm going to put every cent I can, and I'll walk every place I can, and I'll recall those that vote for it.
Seth, you'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, elected officials, and our fire and all of our citizens. This was a very last-minute decision to come here today. I was rummaging through my desk and found my great-uncle's badge as a 50-year volunteer firefighter. I think it was a symbol for me to get some things off my chest. The conversation today is the proposed contract of our local fire department to CAL FIRE. After reviewing the public documents, I cannot find a reason to support change in our current fire department. And after listening to the comments today, it hasn't done anything to sway me. If anything, I heard a lot of things said today that only reinforce the things I'm going to say. I have heard all the arguments on both sides and considered the facts. I present some personal findings, some experiences that I had, which you all know I worked to form a volunteer program that was working with both CAL FIRE, our local fire, the sheriff's departments, and our local PD. I want you to say this. I've had the pleasure of working with several on a first-hand basis and admire the dedication I have witnessed, not only of our city employees, but also of the county employees. I have an excellent working relationship with the CAL FIRE, with Riverside Office of Emergency Services. I've worked with them hand in hand. I've been a member of BOAD, which I'll talk about a little bit. I've worked with Chief Brown, and I've worked with Chief Morris. And I have utmost respect for everyone that puts on a uniform and commits to our public safety. We are fortunate that all of these people have chosen a path of dedicated services, and for that, I personally want to thank all of you. The first argument that I heard in favor of change proposed by our city council is fiscal responsibility. It began that I heard Councilwoman Milne during her campaign rhetoric. On many occasions, she said that competition is good, and we need to make sure that our department is competitive, and that time is well spent. I agree. The numbers show that our department is competitive. Councilwoman, you also said that you had a background in corporate turnaround and retail sector. My question to all of you is, if we contract out, who will we be able to compare with for future numbers to make sure that we're still getting the best deal? Competition breeds honesty. If we contract out for a small difference this year, we're subject to paying any savings we might have incurred in future contracts, which we cannot put out to alternative choices. Granting a monopoly is not fiscally responsible. When we contracted out trash service, one point was made time and time again. There are 3 companies that will be able to bid for our contract at the end of the current contract, keeping fiscal responsibility. When I look at our neighboring city and the contracts they have with county fire and police, over the past several years, and I am a little bit more knowledgeable about the police contract, but it has increased, considerably. If the economy does not turn around, their city could be facing bills for public safety that is in excess of their total city income, and I've heard that could happen before the end of the decade. If their reserves run out and increase continue at the rate, San Jacinto will be in bankruptcy, and I've heard it's the numbers 10 or so years, possibly sooner. Their only choice to stem price increases will be to reduce personnel, making proactive policing, proactive fire, proactive safety that much more difficult. The second reason given in favor of contracting is better service. I find a myriad of fallacies in this argument. First, there are current mutual aid compacts among all fire departments. If one is overburdened, others step in, and that includes using the resources CAL FIRE has talked about today. Their hazmat would address our city. They talk about the fire teams. Well, we don't have mountain rescue. We have the use of the field clearing services and so forth that was touted on several occasions tonight. When we talk about like services, what we don't have, we currently have a reciprocal agreement with County Fire, CAL FIRE. If we were to be all CAL FIRE, then our resources would be sent up the mountain in coverage in case of a wildfire or problems up there. In that case, our resources would come from surrounding cities. Well, currently, CAL FIRE goes to answers up the mountain. Hemet is the reciprocal agreement to the other stations out here. That reciprocal agreement is in place. There's no benefit for changing it. If anything, it would be more time for people to cover this. Not a lot. I'm not saying it's huge. It's not a positive difference. As far as better services, I can tell you from first-hand knowledge and working with Chief Morris that our city is safer because of his efforts. He has instigated a very aggressive campaign to make the city safer in case of disaster. Chief Morris has set up more emergency evacuation centers in the valley than any of our surrounding cities, or any of the cities contracted with CAL FIRE. These are independent agreements with churches and aid facilities that will be ready if disaster strikes. San Jacinto does not have a single location that is prepared to the degree that at least 4 locations are set up here in the city of Hemet. Chief Morris has also obtained grants for training community emergency response teams. He is estimating we will be able to give 1 class a month for approximately 40 people for this next fiscal year, all on fees from outside the city. San Jacinto is scheduled to give 2 to 4 classes this year. Temecula, I have heard, I have not been able to verify, is 4 to 6. In my work with the Riverside County VOAD, which is Volunteers Organized Against Disaster, if and when it comes to the disaster, it's not going to change whether we have CAL FIRE, city, the VOAD, which is the people that would organize from all over the state, would come to our aid. There is no benefit when it comes to that for changing services. And I have found no, other than the major metropolitan cities, that are as dedicated to emergency preparedness as Chief Morris is here in Hemet. He's done a wonderful job. Speaking of other cities, I have a third argument in favor of contracting. Every other city does it. I was a resident of Temecula when they went through cityhood in the late 1980s, and was a very, very close friend of Carl Lindemans and a neighbor of Sal Munoz, 2 of the original council people. I was there when they were talking about creating city services. One thing was common. We don't have the money to raise to start a city, and we'll go out and pay for the services. Let's contract, and we will go out and create our own city fire and police departments as we can afford it. We know they've never been able to afford it. They're not going to be able to. Look at the city of Murrieta. They, as an example, had already an already established fire district. It began as an all-volunteer fire department in the 1940s. It grew to a partially employed staff and then was enveloped into the city of Murrieta when the cost of operating and purchasing new equipment became unfeasible. Murrieta still has a city-run fire department. It was there when they started, and it's going to continue. If the truth is that if we dismantle this department, it will never be fiscally reasonable to repurchase new equipment and restart at a later date. A vote to contract now is a vote to contract forever and kill our 100-year-old tradition. The last argument I have heard in favor of contracting is to dismantle our local union. This one confuses me. Is our council suggesting that our local union is more dangerous and more powerful than the state union? Has the local union negotiated in good faith and conceded pay, benefits, and raises? Yes, they have. The city council will not have an opportunity to negotiate with CAL FIRE. You will get a bill out of your control. I keep on hearing all these people tell you that we won't have to do that. Well, as a owner of a business, I want to be able to control who works for me and what their pay is. You know, I've heard a lot of things. I've heard from the Tea Party agenda to all sorts of things that have been going around. I heard that it became personal, that some of the council did not like the tone or decorum of the union negotiators during the Pastor talks. They wanted to dismantle the union. I've heard firemen say they didn't like the tone or decorum of the tactics of our council members. For whatever reason, I cannot find any sense in replacing our local union with the state union. Again, I want to share, this is personal experience. I've had the opportunity to work with these. CAL FIRE is a great organization, have great people. So does our city. Change for the sake of change, I don't understand. I don't think that we have. I know that I have invested lots and lots of times. When I tried to contact Chief Hawkins when we were starting this nonprofit, it took a month and I was battled all over downtown Riverside to make contact with CAL FIRE. I finally got in touch with the Office of Emergency Services, and the day I showed up to meet Chief Hawkins to send us in a council meeting, he was moved on to a different location and replaced. I was able to talk with Chief Morris and with Chief Brown and make things immediately.
30 seconds.
I'll close up. You know, I ask of you, you're making a decision whether or not you are going to kill our city services, in my opinion. Are any of you fully qualified? Have you been inside departments? Have you seen it? I appreciate the shows that we're putting on here. They both have done a very, very good job. And again, any of our services would be good. But you're making a decision, and do you want your legacy to be that decision? Have you given your best attention? I appreciate you this.
Good evening, Council. I hesitate to speak after Chief Morris's brilliant presentation, and with all due respect to Chief Hawkins and Vulture, their rousing presentation. But they made it abundantly clear that they don't have a clue what our community needs. As we learned at our last meeting, we are facing a deficit of $2.7 million for the next year. I don't expect we have a windfall of money to count on in the next few years, perhaps even a decade. Which means we need to be as fiscally conservative as possible for the long term. We do not need a Band-Aid from the county. We need a long-term solution, long-term like Hemet Fire Department and their 100 years of service to our community. I spent a great amount of time reviewing the bids from the county and the Hemet Fire, and one thing is certain, there are a lot of uncertainties. What we do know is that we currently have a local fire department that is kept within budget or under budget, as we learned tonight from Chief Morris, and CAL FIRE, which has had $80 million worth of cuts in the last 18 months. Until I started to research these bids and read up on all the particulars of going to county services, I was under the impression that it was a matter of dollars, that either Hemet City Fire or CAL FIRE would be fine, would have the same level of service. Now, having done extensive research, I do not believe that is true. Besides, that $397,000 difference is minimal. It is almost City Manager Bradley's contract cost. I believe the citizens will experience diminished service if CAL FIRE takes over, especially during fire season when engines are pulled from our city to fight brush fires miles and miles away. It would take more than my allotted 2 minutes to explain all the ways we could suffer if we went to county services, but I'd like to touch on a few points about the cost of going to county.
30 seconds.
President Reagan once said the 9 most terrifying words of the English language are from, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Let me tell you, the 9 most terrifying words for the citizens of Hemet were from the county and we're here to help. Competition has always been the consumer's friend. It drives the price of service down and it gives consumer a great advantage. That is why we have laws against monopoly. That is why it is wise for the city of Hemet to keep our city fire department.
Thank you.
Keep things local. Do not shuck your responsibilities.
Your time is expired. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve Sanford, followed by Tammy Wilhelm.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, citizens of Hemet, I'd like to start by saying that the Hemet firefighters appreciate your support, not just tonight, but for the last 2 years. This has been going on for a long time. And you've been there for us, so we really appreciate that. Secondly, I want everybody to know that we only get to do this once every 100 years. I thought Chief Morris did an outstanding job. I think that we owe him a little appreciation for putting out a really nice product. I know Cal Fire gets to do it a little more frequently, so they're a little more tuned in, but great job, Joe. And then the brush truck that's out front, we really need to do a thank you again to the Saboga Indians for protecting the people in this valley, not just us, but everybody. Life and property will be saved. Lastly, I'd like to say that the Hemet firefighters answer to the chief, and the chief answers to the city manager, the city manager to the council. But we all work for the people of Hemet. They're our boss. And the Hemet firefighters will throw in the towel when our boss says it's time. Thank you.
Sammy, one moment. That's right. Jerry, you're next.
Good evening. I'm tired enough. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read this, but I'll try. I'm not going to talk about the RFP directly. 7 months ago, this very hall was filled overflowing with Hemet residents, much like it was earlier this evening. They were angry, they were frightened, they were quite literally fed up. For all the fist pounding and pleading and personal testimony, not one of those residents said to you, "My house burned down because of the lack of fire services." Not one person said, "Fix our fire department." In fact, every single speaker in that meeting, and every meeting since, has asked the same question of you over and over and over again. What are you going to do about crime? But we're here and we're talking about fire. Mr. Mayor, council members, if you have a plan to solve our crime problem and the elimination of our fire department is part of that plan, then before we take one step further, you owe this community the opportunity to weigh that plan against this risk. Our police and fire departments have overlapping services, and no RFP analysis is complete unless we know how the loss of one will impact the cost to the other. So far, there is nothing in comparing these RFPs from Cal Fire and Hemet Fire Department that suggests there is a windfall at the end of this debate.
30 seconds.
So on behalf of Hemet residents, I'm demanding the City Council deliver to the citizens of Hemet a comprehensive public safety plan, a plan that answers the question we've been asking for 7 months. What are you going to do about the thugs, the drugs, and crime in our community? A plan that allows us to share in the deliberative process and decide what services, police or fire, that we are or are not willing to sacrifice in order to recapture our peace of mind. And ladies and gentlemen, I will respectfully submit that if you think this community is going to stand by quietly while you play on our fear and our grief so that you can part out this community one RFP at a time, you are sadly mistaken. Thank you.
Jerry, you have 4 minutes.
I'd like to say I echo everything that everyone has come up in the last 15 minutes to say. The things that I didn't hear tonight in the RFP discussion, when I talked to Glenn Patterson about 6 months ago, he had mentioned that the cost savings that were foreseen from merging our interests into CAL FIRE would be done primarily through the savings of labor by restructuring the hours that the people work. If Hemet Fire Department were to put into their bid the same hours that, and structure of the hours that CAL FIRE has, I think there might be a difference in the way we look at things financially. I think Rita should take a look at that. Secondly, there is a big cost that Chief Morris has pointed out to operating our services, our public fire services for emergency medical, for non-emergency medical. I didn't hear CAL FIRE say anything about their costs for non-emergency medical would be similar to the city of Hemet. So I'd like that to be considered as The other thing that I wanted to point out was, I have been talking with a number of people about putting together a foundation we're calling FRESH, a Foundation for Responsive Emergency Safety and Health Funding for the City of Hemet. And I would like to offer our services to Chief Morris in order to help plan and obtain more grants privately that don't depend on FEMA or any other government agency, but that we can pull out of the woodwork. And I'd like to help the City Council in creating the structure for that to happen privately. Thank you.
Joaquin Calhoun, followed by Scott Garrett.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, our council members. Does anyone here have special needs children? If you do, then you know what I'm going to say. HRC is a 5-minute response for firefighters and police, voted on by our citizens in the 1980s. Mr. Mayor, members of our city council, can you guarantee our citizens of Hemet that CAL FIRE will honor this 5 minutes? For 16 years, I drove a school bus. 6 of those years, I drove a special needs bus full of special needs children. Young couples with their precious children in our bus, and out to school we go. I had an experience I will never forget for the rest of my life. One of our students went into convulsions like I never had ever seen before.
Joaquin, 30 seconds.
I pulled the bus over my aide and I went to work on the student. And with all the training we had, my aide and I, it was not working until a fire truck arrived within 3 and 5 minutes, and firemen came in with such courage.
Joaquin, your time has expired. I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up. Joaquin, you have 10 seconds to wrap up.
10 seconds?
I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up.
I don't think so, sir. It's more like 15 seconds.
I'll give you 15 seconds.
Thank you. Okay. This is a point I'm trying to make. This fireman came in my bus. Our training was not working.
Okay, the 15 seconds has expired. Thank you. Scott Garrett. Okay, your time has expired. Thank you. Scott. Excuse me, we will not have any type of profanity or anything like that. You will be excused from the meeting. Nancy Siegstrand. Apologies if I mispronounce your name. Followed by Denise Hargis. Nancy. David Harvey. Followed by Mike Brune. David, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, City Council. It's been quite a show with you today. Just got one thing that you're missing. It's called response time. Measure C was voted on in 1988. You voted, the citizens voted, the fire department's going to be on scene. Their response time, 5 minutes, 80% of the time. Not their drive time. saw CAL FIRE's little presentation up there. They've got drive time, 4 minutes drive time. They could have 10 minutes of, by the time the dispatcher answers the phone, by the time they dispatch. Response time by NFPA 1710, NFPA 1221, the city council's study that they had done in 2004 by the Olson Group, it specifies that response time starts when the dispatcher answers the phone to the on-scene time of responding unit. CAL FIRE can't do that. And while you still have a dispatch here that has to take the call and transfer it to CAL FIRE, makes it even longer. Be accepted, and we say that they can meet the emergency requirements. And I'm surprised that since you closed Station 5, that you guys have not had legal action taken against you. Because that's not okay, and maybe we should do it. It's a mandate. And you guys aren't meeting that mandate. And I think it's about time you do. And if you guys vote to go CAL FIRE, I will gladly participate in the recall. Thank you.
Mike Broom, followed by Patty Woods.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. First of all, I'd like to say the Hemet right now are speaking to you, so I hope you're listening. We don't want to get rid of fire. We don't want to get rid of police. You say you want to serve the people of Hemet, serve the people of Hemet. That's what they want. They want to keep their fire. They want to keep the police. That's what they're telling you right now. Second of all, I'd like to tell you about consulting fees. Maybe like Andrew Hall, we paid $300,000 for him. That would more than make up for 1 year's worth of budget deficit we're supposedly missing on our fire department. So, you know, consulting fees for people, you know, kind of crazy. And I think Mark Form ought to be city manager. So, you know, I mean, why are we paying somebody else to do what Mark Form can do? And, I don't know, just listen to the people of Hemet. You know, they elected you, right? And you're supposed to do what they want to do, right? And they're telling you what they want. So I would think that you want to listen to what they're saying. And I don't know what else I got. I really wasn't prepared tonight, so.
Mike, 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Rock on! Patty Woods will have 4 minutes, followed by Terry Strombringer, who will have 6 minutes.
Good evening, council and public. Thank you for hanging out for you guys that did. I'm not here because I'm concerned for the public safety and I'm concerned for our public finances. Those are both big deals. I'm fearful that most of you haven't taken the time to listen to the people that you represent. We don't work for you, you represent us. We are the very people that value our safety. It was the people's value of their safety that drove them to pass the ballot measure C, ensuring that our safety would be a priority to the local government. If you take the time to evaluate the RFPs in front of you, specifically the one from CAL FIRE, you would realize that it fails to meet the guidelines of Measure C, and any further entertainment of this RFP should be immediately ceased in the interest of the safety of the citizens. My concern also extends to the residents of the southwest area of San Jacinto. I know they have not been involved in or consulted for any decisions to utilize their resources for in the city of Hemet. They are not aware of the reduced coverage that will have an impact on their safety, and any extended response times will be life-changing for some, all to satisfy your political desire. And while the residents are being asked to consider a parcel fee in excess of $300 per property. While I'm thankful that they're generous, I'm doubtful that they would want their money being spent in our city limits to serve our citizens. I have to wonder if you've considered another fee that's misrepresented or omitted in the that's the dispatch fee. Have you bothered to contact other contract cities to inquire about their fees? I see you have the videos, but I'm not sure that they're completely truthful, and as we all understand, that half the truth is still one whole lie. Have you wondered how much it costs to dispatch 13,000 calls a year at $55 a call? You don't need to call Rita because I've done the math for you. And that's about it doesn't provide paramedic services. You also fail to acknowledge that you currently employ firefighters that are already trained and certified as paramedics that are ready to work in that capacity and are only being held back by the council's lack of approval. It's already been funded by community members and cooperative agreements that are ready to be in place. But it's easier to call them a failure instead of endorsing them. You also fail to inform the public about your ongoing lack of support for both fire and police, which has impacted the citizens that you work for. The fact that both our police and fire are operating on skeleton budgets but still doing a fine job speaks highly of the men and women on the forces. You've heard me several times stand here and speak of Hemet Fire and admonish you for your long-standing lack of support. I'm here once again to remind you that these men and women report to their stations on their shift and stand ready to respond, not just when it glorifies them, not just when there's cameras, not just when it looks good, but whenever they are needed. That is much more than what you have done.
30 seconds.
Now I have to wonder, this is 35, now I have to wonder if you have considered the employees that will lose their job if you indeed continue to pursue this contract as you plan. I have to ask you once again, because I think it's important enough to warrant an answer, why would we contract with a provider that is in complete financial disarray? Neither the county of Riverside nor the state are in any kind of financial condition that warrants getting into a relationship with. We aren't playing a game of Russian roulette here, although that must be what it feels like to the men and women who serve the citizens in both HFE and the games that have been played by these senseless talks of art needs to end.
Tell your
Just a
time's
reminder,
expired.
you're here to serve the community of Hemet. We're not here to serve you.
Terry Southerner, who will have 6 minutes.
They probably want to take 4, so somebody else can. Council people, I am here to urge you, no, I'm really here to implore you to do the correct thing by this city. In your campaign talks, you said you would look at the possibility of saving money by going to CAL FIRE. I've looked at the bids, I had them explained, I've watched all the demonstrations tonight. I don't feel that there is enough savings to justify the massive change to CAL FIRE. If our city fire department isn't broke, why are we trying to fix it? Also, I wonder what will happen the next year and the year after that. Will their fees change? Will we have negotiation ability like we currently do with the Hemet department? What will happen to our coverage during fire season? You, the city council, were elected to serve the people of Hemet, not Jeff Stone or the county. I am thoroughly convinced that you are doing his bidding as repayment for the $4,000 each that Shelley Milne and Mayor Youssef received as campaign contributions. These funds were given, by the way, at the very last moment, so these contributions
Mr. Southerner,
could
please
not be
focus
published.
on fire or your time will expire. Please focus on or address the council's
Well, it does impact
or
that.
address the council's opinion.
I was addressing all of you. I was referencing 2 of you. These kinds of funds are not given without strings attached. I truly believe that the main reason that there is a discussion about contracting out services for fire and police is because Jeff Stone wants that money for the county due to the dire financial situation the county is in. It is time to set aside your political ambitions and do what is right for the community. Put these ridiculous ideas of outsourcing aside and get to the business of making this town safe again for we, the citizens. Stop this nonsense now before it is too late and all the good citizens and businesses leave.
My role.
The people of Hemet will not forget what you have done and are continuing to do to this town. After what you were doing to this town, I doubt that you could get elected for dog catcher. If you continue to do things the way you have, I suggest that it will be political suicide. Local citizens want local fire and local police.
the council's intended actions, so listen up. I understand that the city is in the initial efforts of divesting their obligations to public health and safety by turning over basic fire protection and/or police services to the county of Riverside. This effort is not only misguided, but it is in direct violation of the city's prior commitments to its citizens, contradicts public votes on safety such as response time issues, and avoid mandatory notice and comment periods along with mandatory state and federal environmental guidelines. Let me be clear, under no circumstances may the city obviate through a simple city council vote their obligations to the citizens regarding public safety, and in particular response time with fires, without complying with legal and mandatory notice and comment periods, a revised and updated environmental impact, and a true investigation into the stated response times of the county of Riverside. Key points. By resolutions in 1988 and 1992, the city of Hemet committed to its citizenry to develop and adopt a general plan to preserve the sanctity, security, and safety of the community. By acknowledging the importance of such significant action between 1988 and 1992, the city took appropriate legal and mandatory steps to adequately study the effect of this proposed general plan. One key component of the general plan is the commitment to respond within 5 minutes. Indeed, for the past 20 years, this city has at various times revisited the response time analysis and responded accordingly. Notably, prior to adopting the general plan, it was submitted to, first, an impartial analysis from then city attorney, second, notice provisions to allow public comment, including a deadline to present arguments regarding the proposal, a separate deadline to present rebuttal arguments. Third, an environmental impact statement required under both state and federal law regarding the impact of the general plan, and finally, 4, a ballot measure requiring approval of a simple majority of the proposed general plan by the general public. Finally, giving over to the county the city's fire department is inconsistent with the city's requirements that local developers finance the expansion of safety services. For example, in the past, cities turned to private developers as a means for funding of expanded safety service, such as in 2004 when the city accepted $275,000 contribution from Heartland Development to address continued issues with public safety. Any confusion regarding the city's commitment was conclusively resolved by City Attorney Eric Vale, who in a written memo acknowledged the following. At your request, I reviewed Measure C materials again and provided a slight modification to the description of how all this fits together. In short, Ordinance 1293, otherwise known as Measure C, which the voters approved, requires the city to go through a specific process to develop and then adopt a public service and safety and facilities element, setting minimum standards for 6 different types of public service facilities and requiring the resulting element be submitted to the voters for confirmation or ratification of the PSFE. Ordinance 1293 also expressly states that maximum growth limits and standards for their implementation be set in the event that the minimum standards could not be met, including that no new development occur unless the standards are met. Finally, Ordinance 1293 states that the city may not reduce or eliminate any standard contained in the PSFE without firmly obtaining a majority vote of the people, but that the city can impose more restrictive standards without a vote of the people. Over the subsequent 4 years, the city developed a 2.5-page PSFE establishing a goal and a performance standard for each of the 6 different types of services listed in Ordinance 1293. The City Council approved the PSFE by Resolution 2981. In compliance with Ordinance 1293, or Measure C, the City Council approved in 1992, including the PSFE by Resolution 2994, and submitted Resolution 2981, which approved the PSFE to the voters in November of 1992 by means of a referendum, Measure EE. And it was duly approved by the voters and subsequently incorporated into the 1992 general plan for the approval of council. Based on this, my comments are as follows. You will need to ensure that there is nothing in the updated general plan that is inconsistent with the PSFE. In 1992, PSFE is a brief implementation section. Your implementation measures should require new development to meet and maintain these standards, and in the event they cannot be met, then describe appropriate implementation measures to be taken. Christopher Nissen, Manning and Cass, Elrod.
And wait, your time's actually expired, so it's gone.
Thank you for your time.
staff has identified the fact that two options provided for by CAL FIRE are more expensive than services provided by your fire department, options 1 and 2. It appears they are hanging their hat, as is your staff apparently, proposing you pay particular attention to option 3. In my mind, in testing response times from San Jacinto Station, Cottonwood, CAL FIRE cannot meet the 5-minute standard. There's no possible way for an engine to travel that distance and meet the standards. While visiting the communication center the other day, at CAL FIRE Dispatch Center, they showed me on their computers how much time it would take to get from Homeland, I believe it was, Homeland to Western Hemet. It was 6.5 minutes. The fire department cannot meet the standards, and according to the information you have before you by our attorney, you therefore cannot contract with them. That'd be in violation of Measure C, I believe. One other thing I want to bring to your attention is this notion that you have local control. I adamantly disagree with that notion. At some point in time, you shall receive an increase for fire services from CAL FIRE. At that time, you have 3 options available to you. Options which are untenable. Your first is to reduce city services elsewhere so as to be able to pay for CAL FIRE contract. Secondly, you can reduce your level of service so that you can pay for it. But we see in option 3 what that means. It means closing station 3 to reduce their costs. And as I've noted, I do not believe you can do that. It appears to be contrary to the mandates of Measure C. Lastly, you can choose to open up your own fire station, cancel your contract. You have a year to cancel your contract pursuant to the agreement before you. That, of course, unless you have several millions of dollars lying around, you cannot do. Ergo, you are left with one option, and that is to cut discretionary services being provided to the community at this time in favor of paying for CAL FIRE. I say this, being able to select your own choice of demise is not what I would refer to as having control of my life. I have the highest regard and respect for CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE is a state agency. It's probably the finest firefighting state agency in the nation. They have identified the fact that they have this tier of chiefs available to them. Let me suggest, rather than looking at their org chart, you go out to one of their fire stations. Guess what? They have an engine sitting there, and they have firefighters sitting there. They have the same thing that we do. They have the same command structure we do. It's larger because it is a state agency responsible for 7,200 square miles of the county of Riverside. They have the same training, they do the same thing, they have the same dedication as we do. But there's a problem. When they do go up to Idlewild, and they will, eventually there'll be a fire there. Here comes a major glitch in their program.
And it is recognized in the contract between the state of California and the county of Riverside that when they are overwhelmed in responses, there will be a lack of service. I can quote it for you, but that gets the gist of it. And what that means is that when they send our engines to the mountains and simultaneously call for backup to come in, they have a different term. I'll use backup. If an engine is coming from Cherry Valley down here, trust me, it can't get here in 5 minutes. It can't do it. It was coming from down where you used Westchester. It's coming from the state of Winchester. It's not getting here in 5 minutes. They can't do it. That's the Achilles heel. Now we too have the same problem. There are times when all 5 of our units are out on medical calls, emergency medical calls, and we have a delay. Or if we have a fire, as we did downtown near the theater. But in our case, unlike theirs, we can call for mutual aid to fill those gaps. And as indicated already by the chief himself, they will provide you with the requisite mutual aid. On the other hand, if CAL FIRE goes up the mountain, takes our engines and goes up there, or formerly our engines and goes up there, they don't have anybody close that can meet our 5-minute standard. It's a glitch. It's not going to happen a lot. But if you're among the geriatric set, which I am, and you're having a stroke, having a heart attack, those 5 minutes, life and death. That's the seriousness of what you're talking about. Please support the fire department and help save lives and property. I thank you for your attention.
Robert Valletta, who's about 2 minutes, followed by Kelly Hansen, who also have 2 minutes.
Hello, folks. Robert Valletta. Let me start off by saying to my brothers and sisters in law enforcement and firefighters, I'm sorry that you even had to be put through this. It's complete nonsense. To my brothers and sisters at Hemet Fire, I wish you luck. The fix is in. You saw the video? The fix is in. To my brothers and sisters at Hemet PD, you're about to lose a 103-year-old department if you're not careful. Okay? The fix is in. We saw the video. It wasn't an agendized item, but yet Supervisor Stone's talking about an RFP for Hemet PD. How is that even possible? Could it be a violation of the Brown Act? I don't know. I'm one of the few people in this room. I guarantee you, I'm the only person in this room who's worked as a paramedic, as a fireman, and now as a police officer. I've worked hand in hand. I've trained most of CDF's paramedics. I've trained most of Hemet Fire's personnel. You're making a foolish decision, going against the will of the people. They're equally capable of taking care of the community. You guys have failed the community again. Amy said it best. We gave you the opportunity to handle crime, and you fixed the fire department. I don't know what the heck is wrong here. I have one more thing to say. 38 seconds left. My biggest wish is, before you close down the Hemet PD, that I get to see my brothers in blue cart you off to jail.
My name is Helen Hansen. I've been in the Valley for 30 plus a lot of changes. And I really resent the type of manipulation I feel you have put the citizens through tonight. You wore them out. Yeah. They left exhausted, and you sit here, you could care less. I mean, it's really, whatever respect I had for you when I came, I'm sorry. It's really been damaged, and I'm sad about that. Because we put you in that seat. Local people put you in that seat and trusted you. And I'm afraid you really let us down with all this mesmerizing that you produced tonight, time again, till people just were fed up and left. You aren't caring about us. That's very obvious. And it's very sad. Hemet's a wonderful town. And it really, it could be such a wonderful town if you would cooperate and invite people, the intelligent people that really have ideas that could share with you. Have dialogue, have workshops. Maybe they aren't on the council, but they can help. And you could listen.
Virginia Bryan, followed by Lori Van Arsdale.
Mayor, Council, Pastor Ron Ritter, Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, intersection of Menlo and Sanderson. I was invited here tonight by Chief Morris to talk a little bit about CERT, what is happening in Hemet with the CERT program. The last 5 hours, my eyes have been open. Reason and experience teach the well-informed that the further you are from the flagpole, the less personal attention you get. CAL FIRE equals Sacramento. I hope you were listening very carefully to the very, very persuasive argument that Chief Morris put forth. The one thought that came through over and over again was community, community, community. 2 weeks ago, I went to the chief and I said, can you give me a map of the homes around Prince of Peace Lutheran Church that the members of our congregation are going to reach out to get them to know that this church will be their sanctuary when, God forbid, the San Andreas Fault gives way. In 2 days, I received this map. 2 days from the chief. How long do you think it would take me to get it from Sacramento? Thank you.
Laura, looks like Virginia's donated her time to you, so you'll have 4 minutes.
Thank you, council members and mayor. I really appreciate you staying this late so we can talk. I want to say that, again, 7 months ago, like Tammy mentioned, we were here talking about crime. And unfortunately, I was able to tell you about what my mother had experienced with somebody attacking her and ripping chains off her neck one morning when she's riding around in her senior park. Unfortunately, 7 months later, I get to mention another incident with my mother where her car was stolen. Some of you saw it in the paper. I'm happy to say that I saw the guy in the car when I was running to try to help her. I was able to get on our dispatch system. Now, I know that you call 765-2400. That's in the phone book. That's not a special number I have. Call that and you can get directly into dispatch. Otherwise, your cell phone goes out to Indio and then it's patched back in, so that takes time. It takes seconds. My seeing this guy and being able to call our dispatch system direct and talk to them, talk to somebody who knows our town, who knows what I was talking about meant being able to recover her car in 35 minutes. It also meant being able to catch the guy in an hour and 8 minutes. I want to say to you that you need to think really, really hard about what you're doing when it comes to the fire department and how it's going to relate to the police department, which I hope you consider keeping. I want you to keep the fire department, absolutely. You call 911 in the city and you get to our dispatch. What happens when you get to our dispatch and you have pawned off our fire to CAL FIRE? They have to say, you don't have 911 emergency before they call. You don't know what they're calling about. So they have to call in to 911 and you hear them say, 911, what's your emergency? And they say, my husband is dying. He's having a heart attack. Hold, please. They patch you over to the CAD system. They send it over to Paris. That's maybe seconds, maybe a minute. Maybe 2. I don't know what that takes. 911, what's your emergency? My house is on fire. Hold, please. You really, really haven't addressed that issue. And I think that's absolutely critical that these kind of components of these kind of bids be sorted out absolutely and completely. And I'd also like to say that this Measure C issue is very, very serious. You have a mandate of the people that have told you what they wanted. We had to follow it all through the 90s. We had tough times. We had all kinds of things we had to look at and cut. But we knew, and we were told by our former attorney, we were told by Burke, Williams, and Sorensen, and Eric Vail, what we had to do to follow them. And I truly believe that you will be closing that station, number 3, with this option that the staff is recommending, closing Station 3, when you've got the highest number of retired citizens on the west side and the highest potential for development on that west side. They did not, and they did not even ask San Jacinto if that was okay with them, for them to use that station and their resources to take care of the west end. And I can bet you big money that they cannot meet those call times and that we will suffer. And I do not want to see my mother, who lives on the west end, be collateral damage for that decision. Thank you.
Lisa Haro. Lisa, you'll have 4 minutes, followed by Jean Eichel. Jean, you'll have 10 minutes.
Dear council members, the purpose of my story is not to elicit an emotional response, but instead to stress the importance of response times and having resources available in stations throughout our city when an emergency arises. On July 10, 2004, I was at home with my 13-month-old daughter, Madison. Our home is located on Rim Road in Val Vista. We live in an area of East Hemet called Sprague Heights. I was on my computer working on a project. Madison was playing and crawling around the house like she always did. Meanwhile, I was having a difficult time formatting photos that were needed for that afternoon. After some time, I heard a loud crash from my next-door neighbor's yard. My 3 dogs started barking. That noise startled me, and I got up to look for Madison, who was normally close by. I had gotten sidetracked with the photos on the computer. I looked all over our 2,500 square foot house, but I could not find her. In a panic, I ran outside and looked in our backyard, which also had a pool. I looked, but I was relieved to see that the pool was empty along with the rest of the yard. I ran back in the house thinking that I would see Madison crawling down along our hallway. I looked in all the rooms. Then I looked at my master bedroom. I saw the curtains to our sliding door billow out with a breeze. I will never forget how I felt in that moment. One of our dogs had nosed open the screen door that went directly to our pool. I ran back out and I saw Madison floating face down and the color of purple that I will never forget. I had not seen her the first time when I looked in the pool because of her little body being tucked into the apex where the pool meets the jacuzzi. I quickly pulled her lifeless body out of the water and assessed her for any signs of life. She had no pulse and was not breathing. Her eyes were lifeless. I quickly started CPR and I screamed to my neighbor, Andy, who had made Madison to our front yard to wait for emergency responders. I remember it feeling like so much time had passed. I remember sheriff's deputy arrived. Still no ambulance or fire truck. Finally, after 20 minutes, I saw a fire truck coming up our street. To my surprise, it was Hemet Fire Department's engine, number 1. It explained why the long response time, but I still could not figure out why no ambulance had arrived. Madison was taken out of my arms by the firefighters and provided with oxygen she desperately needed. With all of my CPR, I was never able to get her to breathe on her own, just the continuous flow of cool water coming from her lungs. She was then taken to Hemet Hospital in the back of the deputy's vehicle. At Hemet Hospital, Madison's little body postured and contorted the way a person with severe brain injury or lack of oxygen does for sustained periods of time. It did not look good. Unfortunately, I had seen this before in other severe trauma patients. Madison was flown to Loma Linda Hospital, where she was stabilized and placed on a ventilator. The tests that were run indicated she had suffered severe hypoxic event or sustained long period without oxygen. It was unknown if she would have any brain function. We spent just under a month watching, waiting, and praying. We lived in a motorhome in Loma Linda's hospital parking lot. We were called 4 times in the middle of the night to come to the ICU. I will never forget the dreaded walk through the hallway, wondering if they were going to tell us that our daughter had passed. Each time, it was just more bad news. Another tube had to be placed in a new leak on her severely damaged lungs, or her blood pressure had plummeted again, so they wanted us to remain in the hospital, just in case. Miraculously, in the 3rd week, Madison started to show signs of brain function. They slowly allowed her body to come out of the induced coma to assess where she was at. By the grace of God, Madison woke up one morning surrounded by us. I will never forget the look in her big eyes when she saw her papa's face. She knew him.
Mr. Time's expired, we'll give you 30 additional seconds.
Thank you. I just have a page and a half, please. Madison continued to improve during her stay at the hospital. I will never forget listening in on the teaching doctors as they came in and discussed Madison's case with all the other student doctors. She was referred to as the Miracle Madison. There was no scientific explanation of how she could not only survive, but appeared to have no deficits beyond all the scans and tests performed. They assumed that she would eventually die. Madison will be turning 10 in the next couple months. She is vibrant, happy, smart, and shows no indications of the trauma she suffered almost 9 years ago. As much as I have struggled with the guilt and the pain of Madison's story over the years, I feel that it is also important to tell you the story today. My only regret is that I am unable to personally tell you her story. I believe that her story is compelling, not only because it is miraculous, but also because it pertains to why we are here tonight.
You say your time is expired. If you like, we can go ahead and you can give that to the records, we can finish that. The time's expired.
I have this much and this much on another page.
It's already been, it's been over. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, here's what I learned about the events that happened that day. First, the 2 closest local CAL FIRE units were assigned to other emergencies that morning. By chance, the firefighters from Hemet Fire Department were scanning radio traffic and recognized the street name and the address and the fact that an infant was involved. They heard the other CAL FIRE units were not able to clear a response, so they started towards my home before getting dispatched. They were eventually dispatched and fortunately saved critical moments by already being en route. Second, the AMR unit dispatched to my home was given an incorrect cross street that landed them miles away from my address. Finally, as much as I have battled with the shame of letting my daughter out of my sight that day, I am able to simply be grateful that I was trained on how to perform CPR. I am thankful that my daughter is healthy. I want to stress to you, the council, just how important minutes are in the survival of a life. My daughter is alive because of CPR and because of the rapid response of the crew from Hemet Fire Department and the oxygen they provided her. You cannot allow any residents in our city, especially those in Fire Station 3's district, to be covered by an engine located on Cottonwood in the city of San Jacinto. You have been elected to protect the citizens of Hemet. If Fire Station 3 is closed, you will be providing the residents in those areas with response times that exceed 10 minutes. It only takes 6 minutes for a brain to die without oxygen. Not to mention how a fire grows exponentially as each minute passes without an engine on scene. Please let my story to be a reminder of how imperative it is that emergency medical resources be located appropriately to provide adequate coverage to responsibly protect the citizens that you have been elected to protect. The citizens of Hemet deserve the resources to be protected. Thank you. On behalf of Terry Waters, Engineer, Fire Station 4, City of Hemet Fire Department.
Ray Fonseca, followed by Jim Dorsey. Oh, sorry. Gene, go ahead.
Slight understands that Mayor Youssef, Lieutenant Mayor Smith, and City Council members, my name is Gene Michael. I live at 8405 State Court. I live in the Station 3 area, and I'm very concerned about the proposal to close Station 3 and make it Mars Station. We're going to consider that at our next. I'm also chair of the Community Awareness Committee on Force Safety. We'll be considering that at our next meeting. But tonight I'm speaking to you as president of the Democrats of Hemet St. Joseph. A couple of things, a couple of notes that I've made before I get into what I want to say about local control. I noticed Chief Morris was here a minute or so ago. Saying something. Chief Morris is back there. I do not see Chief Hawkins in the room. Thank you. Furthermore, there is an issue that you perhaps have heard about. A number of the speakers have referred to community. An important part of any organization in the community. Business calls it goodwill. Some businesses sell for large amounts of money because of their goodwill. I think Hemet's fire department has a tremendous amount of goodwill with Chief Morris and the people that are here. If there's any time to make a change, it's not now. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I think it's important for the council to hear the community, to get different perspectives of the various issues before it. There's only 5 of you. You've heard a number of different perspectives, many of them very credible, some of them not so credible. And I think you need to listen to those credible ones and realize they're making some good points. Like the first speaker said, I think made some very, very good points. Other points that were made was this thing about Measure C, which seems to be a legal thing. And you look very interested in that, and I anticipate that we'll get an interpretation from your own attorney on that. The decision to outsource the city's fire services will have a significant impact on the future of Hemet. If you decide to contract with CAL FIRE, we will never, and I repeat, never be able to go back. For this council to make such a drastic decision would be inappropriate. The least you should do is refer it to the people, let the arguments be made, and let the majority decide. Economically, it makes no sense to outsource fire services. The difference is only several hundreds of thousands of dollars. These, quote, savings could be made up with a few good years in an improving economy. And some analysis show it will be more expensive to outsource the department. And you have no control over any future increases that CAL FIRE might impose upon the city. And they talk about you pick what you want, but they don't talk about you pay for what you want. Everything you pick will have to be paid for at their price. The economics of the two proposals is so close that you could almost call it a break even with no positive or negative impact on the city's budget. So it is not justified to use economics as a reason to dismantle the fire department. That would be a ruse. You could argue the county has a paramedic program, but AMR still provides the transportation services for the county, just like it does here in Hemet. HFD is not certified to provide paramedic services of the first responder. However, the hospital and AMR, at no cost to the city, has proposed to provide the training necessary to certify Hemet's fire department to provide paramedic services, which we desperately need. Again, HFD has a reasonable and low-cost solution to the paramedic issue. This council simply has to approve it and allow it to go forward. Hemet's firefighters are competent and hardworking, providing a high quality of service to the city. The fire union has worked with the city to reduce costs in this time of tough budgets. The firefighters have worked with the city, and your answer to their efforts was to slap them in the face. Your first action was the draconian solution of outsourcing the fire department. Did you try anything else? Did you try to get grants to improve the efficiency of the department or provide paramedic services for the city? Tonight I realized that Chief Morris has worked very hard to get grants. Did you consider using some of the windfall from selling the trash department to help upgrade the fire department and the Hemet Police Department? I did not. Your first action was to call for RFPs to outsource the department. Shame on you. Shame on you. During these difficult times, we should be working together, not tearing each other apart. And finally, after you put this issue aside, and I hope you will, and continue with our own Hemet Fire Department, it will be time to stop dismantling the city and start building the city in which we can all live, work, and play. It is time to come together, create a plan that will revitalize our economy, make our streets safe for our children, seniors, and all residents. It is time to provide an environment in which all segments of our population will have opportunities to live a full and prosperous life. We need to work together, and I urge you to form an advisory committee, similar to the GPAC a few years ago, to develop a comprehensive plan that will work on how we can revitalize the city of Hemet. And I'm willing, ready to work with you, and the group I work with is willing to work with you. In fact, I plan to give a presentation at the Rocks this Thursday. Okay, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I urge you to keep the Hemet Fire Department intact and start revitalizing the city by working cooperatively to create a plan of action that will move us forward and stop moving us backwards. Thank you.
Good evening, distinguished of the council, members of the council. As I look at that undulating, beautiful flag, the screen, it reminds me, calls to me at the time I was younger and I was in uniform serving on the United States Air Force. 30 megatons of nuclear power. That was the type 2 missile system. I had a cryptic clearance. Control a bunch of people at technical order down. But I never felt the danger that I saw in the screens of the television where firemen and policemen were giving up their lives in selfless acts of heroism. I stood in a great antenna by the Naval Empire State Building swings, 6 feet each way. We could see the Twin Towers, a marvel of engineering. In a very short time, zealotry, bigotry of religion, downed them police department has a chief second to none in Riverside County or San Bernardino County. It's brilliant. He gave us 4 policemen. I asked for those policemen. When you guys were here, we got him. And you want to throw him away. But the people won't let you. Remember, we can end your time too. It's called recall.
Followed by E.A. Stock.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff, and citizens, thank you for inviting us to dialogue with you this evening on this important issue. I serve as lead pastor at Hemet Church of the Nazarene, the first church to serve as a Mercy Air landing zone, first church here to have an emergency shelter for the city and to host the certain training events. And we've encouraged other pastors to join us. I serve as a director of ministerial fellowship here in Hemet. There are about 60 congregations in that group, about 10,000 in attendance. And from all of my exchange with these leaders and churches, I hear all of them interested in involving themselves in planning for any kind of disaster that may come to our area. And my exchanges with the Hemet City Fire Department and Chief Joe Morris has been one of great help to assist us in training CERT volunteers and enlisted people. We believe in these churches just making those properties available and the members enlisting as volunteers. We could see 1,000 CERT volunteers across our city and several dozen places where service can be given. It's understandable to see their concern because you don't have to look too far back in history to see Katrina and Joplin and Hurricane Sandy and know that when some catastrophic event happens, where you won't be having help come from national, federal sources or state sources, we will have to generate the kind of response here locally to deal with those kind of challenges. I would encourage you tonight to do what is necessary to protect our city fire department, to let us continue to enlist community volunteers and support, and do our best to prepare our city to be the best prepared community in the state of California. Thank you.
E.A. Stock, followed by Eric McBride, Carol Cripps.
Mr. Mayor, council people, a couple of points that I'm not sure have been touched upon. We have a state that is bankrupt, and to what extent is that going to affect the contract that you have with CAL FIRE? How long is your contract with CAL FIRE going to be, and then what leverage, if any, do you have on CAL FIRE coming and saying, this is our contract this year? Have you had any contact with other cities who have gone with CAL FIRE? Have you had any contact with other cities who have gone with CAL FIRE and decided they did not want to stay there? What kind of complications would there be if you decide this is a bad deal? Or are you going to be stuck with it?
Eric McBride, followed by Carol Cripps, and then Donna Pace.
Mayor, council members, good morning. A big point that was made is that you no longer will have to negotiate a contract with fire suspension. And that point was talked about a couple of times by CAL FIRE. What does that mean to you as a council? That means you no longer have a seat at the table. You no longer have control over the cost of delivering service to your community. We can talk about what that means and what ifs, but you know what? Let's refer to Rancho Cucamonga's 2012-2013 adopted budget when it refers to their police budget. And For those that you don't know, that Rancho Cucamonga contracts with the Sheriff's Department, the county, for police services. This is the budget document that the city manager prepared for the city council. The first line under the police budget says, in fiscal year 2011-2012, because of large operational contract labor cost increases, special programs and support operations were reduced to maintain an emphasis on patrol services and keep the contract cost neutral, except for the non-personnel increases that were unavoidable. Many special programs were reduced or eliminated. You no longer had control over that because you ceded it to another organization. You don't have a say. You don't have a seat at the table. You don't get to say. They negotiate with the unions. You have no say. You don't get to control. All you get to do is decide when it increases what services you're going to cut for the community to keep it under budget. That's not enough. There. Let's talk about what they wrote in their budget document for 2012 and 2013. It says the San Bernardino County CEO has unexpectedly and without advanced discussion with the contract cities implemented a 66% increase to the countywide cost allocation plan administrative expense, increasing the rate of 3% to a new rate of 5%, which will result in an unanticipated increase in administrative costs to the contract in the amount of $500,000. Now, what did that mean to the city of Rancho Cucamonga? They wanted to add 2 additional police officers that year to their police department. In their budget document, it says that will prevent them from increasing sworn personnel as originally planned. You have no control over that cost. All you have to do then is decide, what are we going to do to cut services to our community to stay within budget? Is that really what we want to do? Do you want to be at the table, have control over the cost of your providing service? I know it's tough to sit up there as a city council person and impose a contract, but sometimes that's what you have to do. It comes to where you have to control your costs so you can deliver a level of service that the community is expecting. If you don't want that, then maybe you don't have a place in front of the city council because you can't make the hard decisions. If you want to cede that to another organization, so be it. But we no longer have control of this community. And that's just what I want to highlight. We can talk about what ifs, but here's a city, a contract city, that has to deal with it. And this is what it happens. And this is in their budget document. And this is on their website. Just go to the budget document. And this is what they're talking about. And that administrative cost was for all contract cities in San Bernardino County. I only asked if you give me enough time that you gave Councilman Miller or Councilman Comachero, who don't even live here in the community. And could have waited for that. Anyway, so, keep control here local. Be fiscally responsible, and that's the way to remain fiscally responsible, is remaining in charge of the cost. That's what we ask you. Just maintain control.
Thank you. I think I've heard everything I wanted to say earlier, so I'll just touch on a few other things. I've worked with most of the senior mobile home parks here in the valley, and a lot of the questions that I got were from seniors who couldn't be here tonight. First of all, they thought the start time was too late for them, not only because of crime, but many of them don't go out at night, they don't drive, so I'd like to make a recommendation the next time you have a meeting, a follow-up meeting or workshops, that you consider the seniors and either start at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon so we can get out at a reasonable time. The second issue that came up with the questions that I got via email and phone calls for those who couldn't attend was the issue of Measure C, which we've heard a lot about tonight, and that's the 5-minute required response time. To the seniors who are calling for medical aid response, for medical aid emergency calls to the fire department, that's a matter of life or death. When you have someone that comes in from out of the area who's not familiar with our mobile home parks, I know what the CAL FIRE people said, yes, they know the communities. They will know them after they've been here a while. Anybody who has gone into the mobile home parks know that sometimes there's no logical reasoning on how they numbered the homes. You may go from 38 to 58 and jump to 156. So as you could spend 5 minutes running around a community and still not find the home you're looking for. So those are issues that when you have local people, I'm serviced by Little Lake because I live in the Val Vista area, and they're in our mobile home park frequently. They're in quick, they're out, they know exactly where they're going. so we have no complaints there. But if I were to have CAL FIRE come in and have to make it a medical emergency call, I would be concerned. I'd probably be out there trying to wave a flag or tell somebody to watch for the trucks to just turn down the right street. And I know it's not a funny issue, it's a real serious issue. The people that are in the mobile home parks have a concern. We could probably have another 300 people here tonight if you'd have had an earlier start time. And I ask you again to consider everything that's been said here tonight, that we need to keep our public services local, both fire and police. They're doing a good job. Measure C, and from the document that you got, I believe is important, and I'm sure that Mr. Vale will look at that and give you some legal advice. But most importantly, the next time you have a meeting, please have an earlier start time so that we can get everybody here that would like to be here. Thank you.
Council members, I've only lived in Hemet a little over 7 years, and I've followed closely the many changes and downsizing of the police and fire departments as the city struggles with budget problems. Fortunately, both departments are staffed with very dedicated professionals who have absorbed all of these impacts and still continue to provide the best service they can. Their commitment to the Hemet community is what drives them. As a resident in the extreme west end of Hemet, I was delighted when the city found a way to extend Devonshire over to Warren and shave valuable minutes off the response time from Station 3. If Station 3 were closed, that would be a major step backwards because we'd have to get our response from the CAL FIRE station on Cottonwood, or the alternative would be an engine from the city of Winchester. They couldn't possibly meet that 5-minute objective. I realize you're trying to find ways to mitigate a budget shortfall, but in reality, the state of California and the county of Riverside have their own budget problems. What assurance would we have that their financial deficiencies wouldn't adversely affect their ability to service Hemet? Notwithstanding the very important value of local control, you simply cannot reasonably expect to receive the same dedication and levels of service provided by contracted workers compared to that of your own employees. I don't mean to disparage the integrity or professional of them, and I have the utmost respect for anyone who swears that oath.
30 seconds.
Many of your current staff have grown up in this community and or live in the city. As such, they are personal stakeholders at the levels of services that they provide to the city. Additionally, the local knowledge that they bring to the job from having grown up here is immeasurable. I was a commuter cop for several years, working in a city other than where I live, and I transferred to the city that I lived in. And I can tell you,
30 seconds to wrap up.
all right, thank you.
Howard Rosenthal, followed by Marisol. Oh, right. It's still, I'm sure, Marisol.
Mayor, this says 15 seconds. Is that Thank you. Mayor and council, thank you for letting me speak. In the 31 years I've been here and active, I've never felt kind of shame as I have tonight. See people far older than me, 1 in the morning, to wait so long to speak. But the story I see is a story that's unbelievable. And it goes back a couple of years. It starts with Supervisor Stone's 3rd District Planning Commissioner arranging for Captain Hawkins, who first met almost 18 months ago with a couple of business leaders and the 3rd District Planning Commissioner at the Bank of Hemet. I was in the courtyard at the time. This has been coming for a couple of years. I believe this is a pre-agreed approach by some council members, and I respect the rules. I won't name who the 3, I suspect. And that it's nothing short of collusion, that there's agreement before before even going through the RFPs, they took an outsourced fire, outsourced police. The supervisor, who I spoke with on Thursday and met with, as you know, went on record that he was told there was an RFP coming for police, and so it's time for us to ask questions for the record. Who told him that? How is this being organized? It's not happening in council and an agenda. So I encourage you not only to put away these RFPs, protect our investment in Hemet Fire and Police, but understand that given the circumstances, if a vote takes place to outsource, that investigative bodies will have a lot of people on their oath and will eventually have to explain themselves. And let's avoid that pain for our community. Thank you.
She's coming. She's coming. Followed by Bob Moss. And Christopher Walker.
I'm going to give my 2 minutes to Marisol there.
The hearing impaired, as protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act, in the First Amendment, would like to convey their support for local control, local police, and local fire, all of which they will have as that is the will of the people. Watch this when you say I can clap.
Well, I don't have a lot to say. The only thing I'm going to say is just going to be short and simple. Sheriff, Mr. Morris has presented all of the facts regarding the cost and of Hemet Fire Department. And the city of Hemet have spoken. Local fire department, if it isn't broken, don't fix it.
Bob Moss. Okay. That's all I have left for opposition. Oh, okay. Come on down.
Is it my turn now? Because I should be in bed right now. All I wanted to say is that local control of your emergency services is critical to a lot of things, including your children. Police officers get to know where good kids are and where bad kids are. Bad kids know that police know where they're at too. It's harder to hide here when you've got your own PD. And I come from a city that had San Antonio PD and fire department for ever. Here yet. That's all I want to say. I'm not so good. I've got Parkinson's disease that makes my head shake. I've been talking about Mary too, so it's not like money just ignore me. Having your own control is critical because, for one thing, everybody knows where every place is. On any of
the stations and send it to a street, they'll know where that street's at, they don't even have, they got a Thomas card. You can't say that in your contract service, because they change personnel. You'll have a driver 1 month, and maybe 6 months later, you got a different driver. He's got to learn the city all over again. Rihanna has done a very successful job with their fire department, and I'm sure you guys can too. But all the intelligence force ready to do the right thing, and I hope they do the right thing. Thank you.
Mayor, council, and citizens. I'm reasonably new here. I enjoy the hills, beautiful highways sometimes. Those highways are brought to you in courtesy of earthquakes, because they put the roads where the earthquakes go. And they put the gas pipelines, communications cables, the same place. When an earthquake comes, you may not have the ability to get out of town. And I'm not familiar with the fault lines here, so I'm hoping it won't be in town. But you're on your own when this happens. You want community, you want people here, and you want people that know the earth. We're probably, I'm going to guess, in the last part of January, we were at the predicted big one. So let's keep that consideration and keep local police department and local fire department. Thank you.
Mayor, council, and staff. If I had a new city now, I'd probably contract with CAL FIRE also, but we have a 100-year-old plus fire department. And you also have a budget structural deficit of $2.7 million. When you went out for your RFP, I'm sure you're going to make a significant dent in that amount, probably save $1 million or more, because that's about the percentage the fire department has. Also, you want paramedics on apparatus, you want an EMD dispatch to solve some problems with it. The city of Hemet has solved 2 of those problems with proposals, and that should be able to be implemented. They are, if you follow that, if you had $10 million budget this year, $10 million you've lost $100,000. But you then have a proposal that staff is suggesting they'll save $300,000, but it makes several significant cuts in the service to the city. First of all, it closes Station 3. And your $300,000 savings go away if you have to open that station again. The CAL FIRE budget for that is $10,590,000. That was the second option. So you lose that. If you're wrong, you're exacerbating your deficit by over $400,000. You're going in the wrong direction. The other thing is you lose your truck in the station. Chief Hawkins said that there is a truck in Hemet in proposal number 3, and it isn't there. Staff, unless staff was wrong twice, Station 1, note truck coverage from surrounding RV stations. You're giving up Station 3 and you're giving up a truck in Hemet. You are severely compromising the safety of the citizens, and at the best you're saving $300,000, you're probably going to lose $500,000 when you can't meet Proposition C because you can't get the 5-hour coverage. I respectfully ask you to stay with Hemet Fire. Thank you.
Mayor and council members, good morning. Can't believe I'm saying that. I live in Rosewood Villa. It is a senior community, 51 residents. It is a condominium. And I'm here representing representing my neighbors. Some of them were here earlier, but they are even older than I am, and they decided that this was just much too late for them. But we're here to support our Hemet Fire Department and our Hemet Police Department. We're a group of citizens you rarely hear about because we don't tag walls, we don't take carts from the shopping center, we don't vandalize homes, we take care of our yards. We actually shop here in our community, in this community, which means we keep sales tax dollars here at home. And we don't ask very much. What we ask, though, is very important to us. We want to have a safe and a well-protected community. And whether that's public safety in terms of police or in fire, we want both of them. And we believe the police and fire department that we have here in Hemet represents what is best in public service. And I don't think either department deserves the uncertainty that they have placed upon them because of this long drawn-out process that we are going through this evening. I do want to, lastly, just make an observation that our own fire chief was able to make his presentation by himself. Cal Fire had to bring at least three people with them, and maybe
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Sylvia Ortiz. I have lived in this valley for 49 years. My family were migrant workers from the San Joaquin Valley. We would come to this beautiful valley to help John and Jean McSweeney harvest the potato crop. In 1964, we decided to move into then a small, quiet community in Hemet. My 4 children attended our local schools in Hemet. Actually, they attended school with some of our present Hemet Police Department officers and Hemet firemen. I'm so proud of these men and women that chose to serve our community. They truly have a vested interest in our community. And I want to share this with you too. It says, I'm amazed at the relationships and the partnerships that the Hemet Fire Department has throughout our valley and our county. I believe the focus here tonight for this morning, is our community, public safety, and cost containment. If I may add, I also believe your responsibilities as elected officials to the office of Hemet City Council are to address these issues. I realize you want to make wise decisions for our community. It was suggested by Mr. Ravers to form a City of Hemet Financial Plan Committee. This would be an excellent opportunity for community involvement. And I have some questions. Has the City of Hemet staff read and studied contracts the county has with cities comparable to Hemet? Has the City of Hemet staff surveyed communities, not community employees, comparable to the city, comparable to Hemet that has contracted with the county? When presently contracted cities renew their contracts, what is the average cost increased each time they renew their contracts with the county? How do they justify these increases? In regards to specific performance, is it smart and is it legal to contract with an agency that will not meet the requirements of Measure C, response time? Time is of the essence. Will we lose the level of service? The decision to contract out public safety will impact everyone in our community. Those looking to invest in Hemet, business, families, retirees, and our schools. In closing, I would like to remind you of the definition of the of the due diligence process you pledge to honor. Due diligence process is a term used for a number of concepts involving either an investigation of a business or a person prior to signing a contract, or an act with a certain standard of care. Hear our voices. Keep our community safe. Make wise and honorable decisions. Thank you.
And we have in favor of John Ryder. John, you have 4 minutes.
All right, Mr. Mayor and the City Council and whatever's left of the people who decided to stay here and listen to the end. I'd first like to thank CAL FIRE for coming down and wading through all this, and of course our City of Hemet. They both gave excellent presentations. I'm not necessarily in favor because I don't believe our city doesn't do a good job. I believe they work very hard. I see them out there. It's a budget issue. I believe it'd be better for the city to go into outsourcing, not because our city doesn't do a good job. Excuse me because I'm a little bit tired here, but because of a budget issue. I mean, if we look at previous councils, they spent money and they weren't responsible of it, and either left you guys with a huge responsibility of trying to continue to balance the city of Hemet's budget. And now we're pushed to the brink of trying to make a decision like this, which it shouldn't have even gotten this far in the first place. But that's the only reason why I'm really in favor of the outsourcing, and so thank you very much.
Robert, forgetting, you have 6 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for letting everyone come here tonight to express their interest in this subject. This is not an easy thing for communities to decide. I've been here in the Valley for 40 years. In fact, prior to that, I came here as a teenager to go to the Hemet Fairgrounds and came here with dates and enjoyed the times that I had here. But things change. And as we look around town, it's not the same town it was 40 years ago, even 50 years ago. One of the things that I think we're not keeping in perspective, and I think that we're looking at this in the wrong way, is that this is not a rejection of the Hemet Fire Department. The Hemet Fire Department is made up of professionals, men and women who have dedicated their lives to this profession. Just like CAL FIRE, just like the U.S. Forest Service smoke jumpers. My son has one for years, and he dedicated his life to that. Now he's doing other things. These individuals dedicate themselves to that profession, not to a name. And I think that the thing that we have to deal with, and this is something that you folks have provided tonight in this atmosphere, being able to bring this testimony forward, is an opportunity for good governance to work, where you can hear testimony and hear all sides of an issue, look at the factors that are involved, and make some good decisions on how to perpetuate the services that these people bring to you as professionals, not just as a name. And that is the important factor that needs to be remembered. I think that one of the things about the government that we have is it allows this kind of open procedure where we can have an open discussion. This is not something where people basically meet in a cluster of enclosed room and make that decision and then come out and tell everybody that's done. This is something that I think a lot of cities across this country are dealing with right now. Recently, I was on the phone with a group in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Now, those cities are older than the city of Hemet, but they're wrestling with this very problem right now as to how to provide public services, where their fire departments and their police departments have been around a lot longer than this. But they're forced to deal with the circumstances that have been dealt with them because of the economy and because of liability, because of litigation, because of insurance problems. So many things that have piled up against the cities that we're having to look at other ways to take care of these issues. And I think that this is the kind of process that we're looking at tonight. Good governance is not just about the question of economics. It's about the question of what happens 10 years from now and how things pile up. When you look at the city of San Bernardino, that did not happen overnight. When you look at the other cities around the state and around the country that are filing for bankruptcy, it did not happen because it was happening overnight. There are a lot of questions that go into play. For example, the liabilities that you incur. Right now, as it was pointed out, we have a $2.7 billion liability that's hanging there. How big will that be in 10 years? Those are so many things that need to be addressed that, and I think that a lot of people have raised these issues, but we really have to look at how we're going to perpetuate that and not get hung up on the name. We have a lot of men who have given this consideration. I mean, 2/3 of the cities in Riverside County have addressed this issue. I was at the city of La Quinta here just a couple of weeks ago because I do work for them. And they had a standing ovation for the brand new fire chief. She's been with that department for a number of years, but she works for CAL FIRE, and that is the city of La Quinta's fire department. But they gave them a standing ovation for all the work that they had been doing, and a standing ovation for the chief that was leading, because they've done an excellent job. That city is prosperous, and they're doing a lot of things, but they've been smart about how they use their money and how they contract their services. And it's not just with fire, it's with so many things. They have an emergency operations center there. It's like a bunker, but it's incredible things that they're doing there because they've had money available to make it happen because they've saved in other ways. And so that's the kind of stuff that the city of Hemet, that's what the leadership is all about here. People have talked about the citizens here are telling you that you work for us. Well, you know what? In November, nearly 10,000 people voted for you who liked what your platform was about bringing this issue forward. This is a small number of people that are here tonight, and that should not be forgotten. There's a large number of people out there who filled out those votes and asked for things to be done to make changes here, to make the public safety issue survive. There are a lot of things, as I pointed out, but there's things like labor negotiations that do tap the city. It costs money to deal with those things. How much was spent just in the last few years in dealing with those labor negotiations that you won't be spending now? There are other things like lawsuits that occur simply as was pointed out when somebody gets hurt or an accident occurs from a vehicle or something else. There's insurance that goes with that. There's retirement.
Mr. Gady, 30 seconds.
Thank you. And all of these things have to be considered. It's about good governance, and it's about being able to make those decisions when you know that the people are out there asking you to give that commitment, not just listening to a few voices. So I ask you tonight, give that some consideration, look at the numbers, ask the questions, and bring back the answers to the people so that you can explain why you made that decision. Thank you.
I'll turn back over to the city manager, Mr. Bradley, as we wrap up.
Thank you, Mayor.
obviously, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, Mr. City Manager. One thing about this process is, whichever direction this council decides to go, it looks like we are seriously looking at the opportunity to have paramedics in this city. And I think that level of service is deserving of the people of this community. So I, for one, there's too many questions that have to be answered. So I believe we need to move this process forward. And I am anxious to see Chief Morris put together a program that he says there's no cost to this city for a paramedic program. So I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to move forward on item 1, item 2, A, B, and C.
I'll second that, because again, yeah, there's additional questions that we need to have an answer. But in particular with fire department, how they will bring the paramedics to the table and securing those negotiations with whoever's going to provide them, but also to in terms of AMR, journey over Station 3 and relocating. So I will second that recommendation. This time, Sarah, I'll put a roll call.
Actually, this is a record vote. Yes. Councilmember Krupa? Yes. Councilmember Wright? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Youssef?
Yes. I think we're about to, we might maybe dead. If you want to use this mic, let's do it.
Give me 2 minutes, that's all I need. And anyway, I was kidding Joe that he just thought his work was done. We'll be back, part of Chief Hawkins, my new best friend over there. We're going to be talking a lot, and we'll bring the information back to you as quickly as possible. I don't want to give you a positive date right now, because I just don't know. Council, woman rights, we've got lots of
Thank you very much. Is there passing the city council reports? Councilmember Mill?
I went to the library meeting and they are setting their goals and so I was happy that I was able to attend this month. It's not being set. Goal setting session. Well, attend next month's meeting and hear what goals are thinking.
Councilmember Krupa?
Very quickly, I had the privilege of representing the mayor and the city council at the VFW Constitution and Voice of Democracy Awards last weekend. And then this past Friday, represented the city at the Black History Essay Contest winners for middle, high school, and college students. The only thing I also want to add is that at the RTA meeting this last week, there's some concern on the local in the state of California because of PEPRA, and we all know that Public Employee Pension Reform Act was passed, and the federal government is looking at recovering all transportation funds to California because of the fact that the American transportation workers feel that the unions were not considered, they did not have a meet and confer before this was passed by the state. So we may be looking at a repeal of PEPRA in the state of California, which means all state employees will go back to the and the fire is not like six.
Councilmember Wright?
I did represent Mayor Youssef and the council at the Elks 65th anniversary Saturday night. There was a number of people there, and in our attendance, we provided certificate of recognition to them, and with regards to
I just want to recognize the Hemet High School girls water polo CIF championships, Division 7. We'll be everybody over the weekend, so good positive things for our girls. And tomorrow, 5 o'clock at Talkowitz High School, there's another hearing on SR 79. Everybody should go, pro or con, go tell RCTC what you think about that project so they can get into the record. That's tomorrow at Talkowitz, 5 o'clock till about 8, I believe.
My reports can wait. Future agenda items.
There was an inquiry tonight with